This is the Literary License Podcast with your hosts, Vicky Ray, John Wilson, and Keith Shorgo. Discussing book to screen and everything in between. Coming at you from the UK and USA.
They keep it real.
I don't understand why you let the things you did get so out of hand. You'd have managed better if you'd had it planned. Why'd you choose such a backward time and such a strange land? If you'd come today, you would have reached the whole nation. Israel in 4 BC had no mass communication. Don't get me wrong. Don't you 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 get me wrong. About your friends at the top. Who'd you think besides yourselves to pick out the crowd? Buddha, was he where it's at? Is he where you are? Could Muhammad move from mountain or was that just PR? Did your mean to die like that? Was that a mistake? Or did you know your messages would be a record breaker? Don't you get me wrong. 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 Don't you get me wrong.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast, and today we're going to be discussing the concept album Jesus Christ Superstar, which was written by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice, and the subliminal Norman Jewison film of Jesus Christ Superstar for a month of Merry Christmas, the controversy. So, before we get started, John, what have you been up to since we last seen you?
Oh, nothing much. Just watching whatever I can when I can because work has been a little crazy. But I went to New Orleans and I went to Vermont. So I did a little couple trips, side
Cool.
trips before the end of the year.
One of my favorite places.
It's getting cold over here. Too cold in New York.
Mm. And what about yourself, Vicky? What have you been up to?
Well, all last week we spent the week in Tulsa because Asher made the national finals in BMX, and he got to semifinals in both categories. So we're pretty proud of him. He's number 16 nationwide. I'll take it.
That's
but
great.
Also, I'm trying to deal with usual Christmas drama that happens right after Thanksgiving. And I watched the Frankenstein Chronicles in 2 days. There was only 2 seasons of it. If you like that dark Victorian fiction stuff, it's really actually really good. I was kind of disappointed they were only doing 2 seasons, but hey, you know, it had all the Poe and Mary Shelley and Keats and Byron kind of thing going on. It was kind of a cool series. Other than that, just getting ready for the silly season.
And myself, I've been watching Batman the animated series on Blu-ray. It was sent to me to do some reviews on it, so I'm loving that.
Nice.
So it looks fantastic. I highly recommend it. It's excellent. And then got caught up on all my book reviews, so they're all out there for people who are interested in those. And got the Christmas tree up and decorated, and just normal day-to-day stuff, getting ready for the Christmas rush that's coming at the end of the month. So that's about it.
Wow.
And so that brings us into Jesus Christ Superstar, the concept album. Just to let you know that this month we're doing quite Christmas themes or Christian themed kind of films and books, and of course an album because we're not doing a book this month. But the also interesting thing is we're also doing the Alfred Hitchcock film, The Lady Vanishes. Now the reason why we're using that as our Christmas film is that in the UK, The Lady Vanishes shows every year in the UK as part of their Christmas Alfred Hitchcock rush that they do on the BBC every year. So it's kind of like a Christmas movie for England. For the rest of the world, not so much. So basically, to start a discussion about Jesus Christ Superstar, the concept album, it was actually written by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice. Now, the important thing to remember about Andrew Lloyd Webber is that before this, they did a small school production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which was more of an oratorio. Since the time that has come out, has expanded into a full-fledged show, which of course has been played on Broadway and in the West End with people like Donny Osmond, David Cassidy, Jason Donovan in this country, Philip Schofield, and a host of many people have actually gone into Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And even though it's considered their first musical, the first real musical is actually Jesus Christ Superstar. Now, Andrew Lloyd Webber, of course, will be the king of the musicals. He led the British invasion onto Broadway with such shows as Evita, Cats, and Phantom of the Opera, Aspects of Love, Starlight.
Love all of those. Love.
Another thing is that Andrew Lloyd Webber is also known for having the musicals that have the longest running times on them, not stage times as in performance times, but running as far as years going. Phantom of the Opera just broke the record for Cats, and before Cats, the record for longest running musical before that was Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, I did not.
So
Phantom of the Opera was just amazing to watch. Mm-hmm. We saw it in the Queen's Theater in London. Oh my God, that was just fabulous watching that.
I've seen it like 4 times.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Tim Rice would go on. His last thing that he would work for Andrew Lloyd Webber on would be Evita, which was a Pulitzer Prize-winning musical. But after he finished with Andrew Lloyd Webber, he would gain a lot of recognition through Disney. He wrote the lyrics for The Lion King and Hunchback of Notre Dame and Hercules and so on and so forth. And when Howard Ashman died from AIDS, he actually finished up the lyrics for Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and other shows like that.
I didn't know that.
So, now the interesting thing about the concept album of Jesus Christ Superstar is that basically they couldn't get money enough to sit there and put the show onto stage. And so Robert Stigwood, and people might know the name of Robert Stigwood from basically, if it wasn't for Robert Stigwood, you wouldn't have Grease, Saturday Night Fever, or Urban Cowboy. And, of course, that flame kind of died a little bit when you did Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and Grease too. But the good thing about it, when it was fully alive, we have quite a few media references to choose from. And Robert Stigwood was the power brains behind Jesus Christ Superstar about bringing it to a concept album. His idea is, let's put it on the concept album and see how it goes. So when the album was released, it hit number 1 all out the world, though it was banned on radio stations at the time that it was released. Murray Head would have a number 1 single with this on the song Superstar. And the interesting thing is that Murray Head, the last name seems familiar to you, is because his brother played Giles on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Now, Murray Head would also have another number 1 hit in America with a little gay song called One Night in Bangkok, based on the musical Chess written by the 2 guys from ABBA, which Tim Rice also wrote the lyrics for. So that was quite interesting.
That's a catchy little tune. That'll be stuck in my head now for the rest of the weekend.
One Night in Bangkok. Bangkok, or lots of city. The city don't know what the city is getting.
Yeah, figures you know it.
Yeah. Well, you can't forget lyrics like,
No.
You don't rate the queens that we're assessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but another interesting thing about Jesus Christ Superstar, the concept album, is that it actually beat Carole King's Tapestry album to be the number 1 album of the year. Which, if you listen to Carole King's Tapestry album, I mean, that was a huge multi-million seller. So it just tells you how many copies Jesus Christ Superstar did. Another thing is Ian Gillan would play the part of Jesus Christ, but he was actually the lead singer for Deep Purple. And it would also incorporate a lot of people, like Joe Cocker's backing group was also the backing group for Jesus Christ Superstar. And it had a lot of stars and backing people behind the actual recording of the show itself. And it also had Rod Stewart's backing singers as well for the song Superstar. And I guess that will bring us to Vicky. Do you have anything you want to add about the concept album of Jesus Christ Superstar?
Well, all I know is I'm not really a good critic when it comes to musicals and whatnot. All I know is that I kind of grew up with it. And I remember being young, me and my best friend at the time, we would, everywhere we went, if it was a long trip, we would sing the whole musical score backwards and forwards. And I remember being in Catholic school. I went to Sacred Heart back in the day, and I was really kind of surprised because they actually let us view the movie in the gymnasium, and there was a couple things in there. It's like, I just didn't expect that nuns would allow. It's really quite tame by modern standards as far as that goes. But I thought it was brilliantly and beautifully written. Even if I don't consider it sacrilegious by any measure. I'm sure some people did, as it was kind of banned here and there. But it was kind of, they based it on the Synoptic Gospels, and they had interpersonal relationships. There were the characters like Jesus and Judas, Mary Magdalene, who really actually wasn't a Protestant. Sorry, Christians, she was not a prostitute either. But it was just one of those things that kind of stay with you, especially if you saw the musical. It's just beautiful. I thought it was one of the beautiful plays I've ever seen, and how it was done. And I really liked the original Judas. I believe that was Carl Raposa. Was that who it is? Carl Raposa, who played the original Judas in the movie. I think he wasn't on the concept album.
Anderson?
But, excuse me?
Carl Anderson, right?
Yeah, Carl Anderson.
Yeah, well, Carl Raposa, I believe, was Judas in the movie. I don't think he was in the
No, it was Carl Anderson in the movie, and then him and Ted Neely were such good friends as that Carl Anderson and Ted Neely would perform Jesus Christ until Carl Anderson's death. Not too long.
Right, exactly. I've got a cold. You have to excuse me. But it's just a beautiful rock opera, it stays with you. That's why I like it. And the writing, I mean, they kept pretty close to the Gospels as well as they could, interjecting a lot of the futuristic stuff in there. But for the most part, I don't know anybody that hasn't heard it. Have you? Or at least seen the play or listened to the album? Because Ian Gillan and Ted Neely, either way, whether it was the movie or the album, those guys can scream, Yeah. They really get into their parts. They have beautiful voices. What about y'all?
What about yourself, John? Anything you want to add about the concept, the making of the concept album, or anything in particular?
Yeah, I know. Rice actually had pulled some influence from Bob Dylan's song "With God on Our Side" to kind of, inspire him to write, or I should say, lyrics these songs, and I thought that was very interesting. Also, the first piece of Superstar, the title song, was actually released a year before the album, which was in 1970. So in '69, this was released, and I thought it was interesting as sort of a teaser. I guess it was John 1941. So I thought that was interesting. They kind of use it as a release, as a teaser to get people interested in the album. And then the album topped the U.S. Billboard charts from February to May and ranked number 1 in the year-end charts. So I thought that was, Keith had mentioned saying that it surpassed Tapestry.
Yeah.
It was also, which is an odd, fact here, the 6th most successful album in Norway, peaking at number 3 and staying on the chart 80 weeks. I thought that was really interesting.
I didn't know that. That's quite the while too, considering.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the first time I heard the album was the Brown album, and I actually had the Brown album, and it was a two-folder. You opened it up, and then you had the vibrato inside it, and I think my first introduction to Jesus Christ Superstar was actually through my music teacher. She would make us listen to it at least once a year, and I think we performed songs in choir and things like that as well.
What school was that you were in? The one?
Excuse me?
What school was that?
Sackett's Harbor.
Was it for Oak Hills?
Mary Ellen Powers is our music teacher. She turned us on to Tommy, which is another one we did. And she's got a guitar. So
she was a cool music teacher. A lot of them back then probably wouldn't have done that.
No, interesting, because that's how the first time I ever heard it too was my choir teacher, Melvin Morrison. She always introduced us to a lot of eclectic music. So she'd do classical, but then she'd do pieces like this, and Phantom and like Miz and all. But Joseph was, Jesus Christ was actually one of the first times I ever heard what is it? I Don't Know How to Love Him, that song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
was the common song that girls pick to be a solo. And it was like, oh God, here we go again. I don't know how oh Jesus, here we go again. And every time we're spring concert, I know what song I want to pick. I don't know. I'm like, oh it's like Groundhog's Day.
The thing is, was Yvonne Elliman was on the album too, was she not?
Yeah.
I don't know too many people that mimic her voice, because she has a fabulous voice. So that's got to be a hard act to follow if you're going to pick that song,
But every girl picked it because they tried, man. And some gay boys too.
Well, I think that Yvonne Elliman is quite an interesting choice because, she's always, to me, she's like the pinnacle of, Mary Magdalene in Jesus Christ Superstar. And I have seen numerous stage productions of it. I saw one, the last one here was fantastic, and it was done quite a neo-modern stage production of it in the West End. And but every time I hear a recording, or seeing different versions of it, I think that there was a Christmas one on U.S. television last year, wasn't there? With what's his name?
Chris.
John Mayer.
John Legend.
John Legend.
Yeah.
And even though the Mary had a pleasant voice, for some reason, I don't think anyone can actually sing that stuff except for Yvonne Elliman. Her voice just seems to be suited to it. People who don't know Yvonne Elliman, you probably know her through Saturday Night Fever's "If I Can't Have You," another one of her number one songs. And she also did the Bee Gees song "Love Me," which was a huge hit in the 70s as well. I actually have her email address, and the last thing I heard from her is that she was actually being charged for marijuana possession in Hawaii. But
no way!
God. Of all things, you're like, really?
Yeah.
I don't know why people won't get off the marijuana. It's just just make it legal.
Well, this was a couple of years ago, so who knows? Maybe it's legal in Hawaii. No one seems to know what goes on in Hawaii except for people.
Well, it grows rampant in Hawaii. It's legal in Oklahoma now.
I think she was traveling on an airplane with it. That was the problem. So.
Well, yeah, they got those dogs at the airport.
Well, it's interesting. That's what they're kind of dealing with now. Is if it's legal in California and Vermont, and you travel on a plane, how do you mitigate
that's
that?
Good, yeah.
So they're kind of going to that legally wise right now.
They just need to be smart like me and UPS at home when you're on a trip. I mail it home. I ain't throwing that shit away. I do too. My mother's really cool about it. She goes, "You got anything else you'd like to throw in the box, honey?" We'll throw that in there. My mother's cool.
I mean, the concept album is quite an interesting thing. I mean, it actually sprang off a lot of Broadway musicals doing concept albums before they'd actually come to the screen. Evita, they did the same thing with Evita. Evita was a concept album before it came to the stage. But things like Chess was a concept album. And then some things come out as concept album that actually don't make it to stage, like King David by Mencken and Tim Rice again. But it was quite an interesting way to actually to gauge people and see how interesting and how it does as an album before you bring it to the stage.
Yeah. It's interesting, like some of the songs, like I know one of the songs, they rewrote it from, and I guess they originally collaborated a piece in 1968 and it was called Kansas Morning, but they rewrote I Don't Know How to Love Him. And it's interesting, at that time they would take songs, like lyricists and composers would take songs that would be for something else and be like, oh, I wonder how this would fit here. And like, I was like, I'm fascinated by that, especially like I see Broadway shows now and like a lot of the songs that are absurded, like taken out, like, oh, we'll put this song in and take this one out. I wonder if they actually have something like that, you know, have other songs that are for this musical.
Basically. They did interject one other song. I think there might have been two. I can't, my mind's just going blank on the other one. But there was a song where the Yvonne Elliman and Peter's character were singing "We Start Again, Please." Yeah, and I think that was right before the crucifixion.
Yeah, but that was actually recorded for this album, but there was not room on the album.
Right.
So, but when someone came to stage, they inserted it.
Yeah, they inserted it. Yeah.
But they did write an extra song for the film. So We Are Decided, I think, is the.
Yeah. That was the Sanhedrin. Yeah.
And I think that has more to do with the simple fact that when a musical comes to stage, they always write one additional song for it, so that way that song can be nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
Is that the reason?
They do it all the time. I mean, even when you watch modern musicals like Hairspray or any other musicals that have come to the stage, that's in Chicago, I think, did it as well. It's so that the way they can take one song and then bring it so they can actually get an award for that one song, so they can have best original song.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So, but you guys are into plays a whole lot more than I am. Mm-hmm. Then again, you guys live in the area where you have some culture. I am in Northeast Texas.
You can always travel to Dallas.
Well, the brilliant thing, you know, do have to say the brilliant about like Netflix and iTunes is like they're recording so many Broadway performances, musicals and operas, and they're showcasing them. And I think that's kind of an amazing thing if you don't really leave your home. Like my dad will never, I shouldn't say he would never, but I don't see him unless I drag him to the theater, like have him coming to see a show like that. But now I could see him like watching this at home and being like, oh, this is interesting, you know.
Does he live in the city too?
No, he lives in California, like lives like more like near the desert area. So he's not like near Hollywood, you know, where they'd have some like.
I hope everything's safe there. They've been having some horrific fires out there.
Yeah, it's been crazy, but luckily it hasn't went that direction.
To be honest, sometimes I much prefer them recording the stage production. Like Stephen Sondheim's very good at this, where he did a lot of his stage productions. He recorded actual stage production. He did Into the Woods, Sunday in the Park with George, Sweeney Todd with Angela Lansbury, and stuff like that.
I love Sweeney Todd.
And I much prefer them doing that than actually sometimes doing movie versions of it, because especially in movie musicals today, they tend to pick actors who can draw an audience but can never sing.
Yeah.
You know, and I find it really, one of my favorite musicals that's opening here with Kelsey Grammer is Amanda La Mancha. But the film production of it, originally had, Peter O'Toole and Sophia Loren in it. And you're like, neither one can sing.
Yeah. But they're pretty to look at.
Yeah, but the thing is like they're croaking themselves through these songs. And it kind of, for me, unfortunately, because it's my favorite musical of all times, and that's the only thing I can refer back to besides the cast album. So if I ever want to see it, until it gets performed somewhere, I can only go to that movie.
Yeah,
and it's a bit like Sweeney Todd. the travesty, dumb fuckness of Tim Burton's, with Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter, croaking their way through this fantastic score, and then basically just ruining the whole essence of the whole Sweeney Todd story.
I also say it's hard to do a movie to us being forward to the movie. It's hard to do a movie that captures the essence of what it is to hear a live performance of something. And so, like, I know they tried to do it at Les Mis, and there was times that I was like, oh my God, just please stop. Because they tried to do some sort of new technology where it was like, you're in the motion of recording someone singing, but then you're getting all the like weird breaths and like it was just like a weird thing. And it's like, okay, this is meant for live stage. To watch it in a movie, it's a little frustrating. And then you do get some people you're like, you're a great actor, but you're a horrible singer. Sorry, Russell Crowe. Yeah. It's just one of those things. Just like, oh my God, you're like, just stop.
You're probably going to be getting a phone call from Russell Crowe next.
I know.
He doesn't make phone calls. He just throws phones. But then you also have the switch of the coin sort of thing, where you have like West Side Story. And West Side Story is one of those things where everyone's pretty much dubbed. And even the people singing who are actually singing, sometimes they're dubbing other people's voices. So they're actually miming to someone else's voice, even though and someone's miming to their voice. But when you watch West Side Story, and another one of my favorites is The Music Man. The movies are actually better than the
love Music Man.
Yeah, Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma, and I love Music Man.
Yeah, we went to go. My daughter is doing whatever for class, and she took me to Music Man. I hadn't been to a play in so long, and I just forgot how enjoyable a play is. And The Music Man is just funny. And Asher, he's like 5 at the time. He hadn't turned 6 yet, and he sat there and was mesmerized. You know how they're at the bridge? She's supposed to meet him at the bridge, and for a kiss. And he's asking, is she going to meet him at the bridge? And I mean, it was just really cute because there's like little kids and they just enjoy it. Really, people out there, take your kids to a play. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, in England, you have to take out a second mortgage to go to a musical nowadays. I think like
really?
Well, it's like Hamilton tickets. If you want to go see Hamilton's,
that's the same over here.
It's about 175 pounds, and that's in the gods.
I was saying the Harry Potter right now was not a musical, but like the Harry Potter here is like $700 a ticket. It's
not worth it. I've seen it.
No, but it's like a 2-night thing, and I'm like, I want to see it, but not for that amount.
Yeah, there's no amount of money.
I'll wait for it to come to Netflix.
Yeah.
Hamilton's is all the rave right now, and people are just killing them, fighting over each other to get tickets for it whenever it shows up. So, I mean, that one's definitely getting a lot of notice.
I mean, going back to Jesus Christ Superstar, what I quite like about this concept album is Barry Dennen as Pontius Pilate in it. He's also in the movie, but his voice is perfect. Well, the funny thing about him is I was actually reading up on him, and he's actually Barbra Streisand's first boyfriend. And he actually started off Barbra Streisand's career. He's the one that put her shows together so that she could sing like songs like "Talk of the Town" and she does these cabaret. She used to do these cabaret shows, and he would put those together for her. Oh. I mean, like great gay icons, of course, he would end up being gay himself. But
isn't that just the way of things? They're all taken or they're gay,
But Barry Dennen's also a very interesting character because he did Hair, of course, and then he also originated the MC part over here with Judi Dench in Cabaret.
So, oh wow, I love that.
So he's got quite a thing. And another interesting thing is King Harold is played by Mike DeBow. Now, if Mike DeBow doesn't mean anything, his daughter Olivia DeBow and Miriam DeBow probably would do. Olivia DeBow was the eldest daughter in Wonder Years.
Oh
yeah.
So. And then Miriam DeBow was actually a big model in the 80s and 90s sort of thing. So
I like how they try to portray Herod as like gay and kind of iffy in the concept album and in the film.
Mm-hmm. And then what I also like about the concept album is that P.P. Arnold's on it. P.P. Arnold's one of my favorite. She's an American singer that's actually found fame in England in the 60s. She had hits like First Cut is the Deepest, and she did a version of Eleanor Rigby and God Only Knows over here. And Madeline Bell, of course, who would go on to do Tommy. She would be the mother in the concept album of Tommy.
Oh, wow.
So,
they all seem to kind of jumpstart off each other, huh?
Well, I think what happens is that, you probably get quite a core group together, and then that core group probably works, like P.P. Arnold. She was a backing singer for Tina Turner. So when Tina Turner came over here, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones loved her voice. So she left being an Ikeette and went on to becoming a solo artist over here. And that would happen to quite a few of them. And then they would all hang around the same circles. I mean,
right. What's that big club they used to all frequent, like with Andy Warhol? What was that called? I know you must know it, John. It's in New York City. I don't even know what's there anymore.
Studio 54.
Yes.
54?
Is that still there?
It is, but it's not what it was. It's like a lounge now, but yeah, it's still there. Yeah, they haven't torn it down.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I was thinking that, because it seemed like things like this, you always, look back in the retro years, and how they used to all hang, and it was just kind of cool, seeing all those people in those pictures. I need to get one of those and frame them where they're all, like all of them are like there.
Yeah.
Britain in the late 60s and 70s was, it was a big community in London. There was that big Carnaby Street, and they were all quite interlinked. They had an interesting show over here called The History of Rock. And basically what it'll do is take one group and it'll show how everything's interlocked with other groups and everything like that. I mean, California had the same thing. I mean, if you look at the history of the Mamas and the Papas, John Sebastian came off that. Crosby, Stills, and Nash were put together because Mama Cass put them together. Cass was part of, the big three, and they had the Mugwumps, and then they separated and they became this group. And,
the Big Boys, like influenced other,
So, and the same thing was going on here in England as well. I mean, all the big people over here were all interconnected. Lulu was, had a hit with To Serve With Love because of the Beatles, and Petula Clark, and, and they would, of course, eventually cross the Atlantic to America. So
it seems like a lot of stuff definitely came out of Great Britain. I mean, you had like waves of the British invasion, and they were always seeming to be on top of things. We're a little kind of like slow over here in the Americas. Like I was watching whatever it's called the 80s, and they were talking about how the British always had like albums and whatever or things to contribute to, like MTV even, and that's why you have so much British at the beginning of MTV. And they've always just had things going on like that. We kind of were catching up.
I think we were stuck sort of also in the era of, the nuclear family, right? Where everything was doo-wop, and, it was to get like gospel even in there, which then incited sort of a jazz, which then incited other, like we were kind of like the vanilla, and then you went to like, Europe, and it was strawberry, vanilla, chocolate. Like it had all the diversity.
They did.
Especially modern music, right? So they were always pushing like, let's try this sound, let's try this, let's try electric, let's try, and they were always pushing the different sounds.
Well, I mean, another thing I think with as far as MTV is concerned is that over in England at that time is that, and this is the reason why ABBA did it as well. It's because they were going for a European audience as well, because you need to expand, and Europe's right across the sea from England. So what you would do is you would record videos, and so that way, and then what you do is you send those over to, on Top of the Pops programs in Germany and France and Spain and et cetera, et cetera.
That's why they became so popular again. It was like a new invasion.
And so, and then when MTV decided that this is what they're going to do, see, American acts didn't do that, and so they needed programming. So the best way to do programming is to have all these already existing videos being sent over. We'll buy them from England, and that way they're already done, and then they'll fill up our programming. And of course, that was the next British invasion. And
it's also like we were so used to variety shows. So again, we were sort of behind in the times. Like it was about having the people perform live on television. Whereas London was probably like, we don't have time for this. Just record a video and we'll put it wherever, whenever, because there were more also public access.
Well, that's why, your Rednecks and Def Leppard was a big one. All their stuff was made for MTV.
Well, But the thing is, you also got to remember, in America, you have 3 networks, and if let's sit there and say that you're going to promote a single, and all you need to do is be in LA and record a program, whether it's Carol Burnett or Cher, Comedy Hour, Carson Show, or David Letterman, and you just do that one show. In England, each country has its own variety show, so that means that artists would have to go from on country to
Show
country
to show. Yeah.
in order to get the same kind of audience that you would get in America, but just appearing in one show.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, of course, the Buggles, being the first video on MTV, would actually prophesize exactly what would happen. Video killed the radio star. And if you weren't pretty, you were no longer a recording star. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah.
I remember watching Pat Benatar's videos, and she has a commentary on there. And she's sitting there going, she said the worst part of it is like when they had to record the video and they were told, okay, now you have to do videos. And they're like, we don't do videos. We're not used to this. And she said, okay, now you're going to dance. And she said that she was made to do a ridiculous dance for Love is a Battlefield. And she goes, just look at me. She goes, they keep putting the camera on me. They just need to put the camera on the same dancers because they, they didn't know how to do that. And that's the reason why a lot of careers died because of that.
Yeah, because you went from being a singer to an actor and a performer, and some people are not that, And then, but then the interesting thing,
everything too.
But then the interesting thing is those who can't sing, who can perform. It's like, well, let's put them in front of the camera. They do great. Let's just synthesize their voice. Let's change it. Let's make it sound really good. So they can't really sing, but they're great performers or they're great actors. So
Well, it's like Madonna in the Chipmunk Years. I mean, if you look at the 80s and 90s, you do have Madonna the Chipmunk Years, where her voice is sped up to make sure she stays in tune. And then of course, I think, after she went for voice lessons, stuff like this, as you notice, is those Chipmunk Years are now gone, and now her voice sounds slightly different than in the 80s.
And suddenly British.
Well, yeah. But then Kylie Minogue, I don't know if she's big in the UK, in the US, but she's big here.
Oh, yeah.
She's the same one.
Yeah.
But she started off Chipmunk Years as well. If you hear her early stuff, you can tell that her voice is slightly spun up, to make her tune. But nowadays we have auto-tune. And let's face it, most people are using the auto-tune. If we didn't have auto-tune, we probably wouldn't have Glee. So
true, yeah.
So, but so as about the concept album of Jesus Christ Superstar, I think what we'll do is we'll cut to a commercial break because we'll probably get more into the story while we discuss the film. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have an ad from our sponsors, which we are now presented by IKEA in our new ads. And they are a bit racy, but they are funny. So
they're funny.
and a new one from Amazon about charity. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Amazon. Oops, wrong Amazon. Although we both contain an array of diversity, the rainforest with all of its animals and us with all of our products, come check us over today and find all the products you need quickly and efficiently. And buy it with one click. And now you can even use us to donate to your favorite charities using Amazon Smile. Amazon Smile is worth your while. Come check us out today.
Started to believe the things they say of you. You really do believe this talk of God is true. Yet, if he said he loved me, I'd be lost, I'd be frightened. I couldn't cope, just couldn't cope. I'd turn my head, I'd back away, I wouldn't want to know, it scares me so. My temple should be a house of prayer. But you have made so tell me that I'm saved. Christ, you know I love you. Did you see our way? I believe in you and God, so tell me that I'm saved. So, you are the Christ, you're the great Jesus Christ. Prove to me that you're divine, change my water into wine.
Morning face. You get it when you don't sleep well. This is what happened to Linda.
Morning, guys.
Good morning. Ah, what is that thing?
It's me, Linda.
Oh my God, it talks! Run!
No, it's me, Linda from HR.
It looks hungry! Save the children! Save them!
What?
Stay back! I've got mace!
Ow, that went in my eyes.
Quit moving!
It's called beauty sleep for a reason. And there's never been a better time to get some.
Get 20% off IKEA Sultan mattresses. IKEA, love your home.
Hello?
What's your favorite scary movie?
I have a bunch of favorite movies. I watch them all on Shudder.com for only $4.99 a month.
That's a scary low price.
But if I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be Scream.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the only streaming service that lets me watch hundreds of horror movies on demand.
I'll be right back.
Hello? Hello? Hello, are you gonna subscribe? Hello?
Go to Shudder.com to subscribe, if you dare.
Okay, welcome back. So, Vicky, why don't you give us a brief synopsis of Jesus Christ Superstar, the film?
Okay. Jesus Christ Superstar is a 1973 American musical drama film directed by Norman Jewison and co-written by Jewison and Melvin Bragg, and it's also based on the Andrew Lloyd Webber Tim Rice rock opera of the same name. The film featuring a cast of Ted Neely, Carl Anderson, Yvonne Elliman, Barry Dennen, Bob Bingham, and Kurt. I'm not going to be able to pull this one off. Yeah, Rahijan. I'm wrong. I know I am. Don't even try to cut this. I don't care. It centers on the conflict between Judas and Jesus during the week of the crucifixion of Jesus. So it would be Holy Week for the Christian, respectively. And the rest is history.
I mean, interesting about Jesus Christ Superstar, the reason why Norman Jewison decided to direct it is because he was actually directing Fiddler on the Roof with Barry Dennen in Fiddler on the Roof, the movie. And Barry Dennen goes, well, you should actually do Jesus Christ Superstar. And he started listening to the album, got on board with it, and hence we had the film. So anything you wanted to start with, John, about Jesus Christ Superstar, the film?
Well, I mean, one of the first things, Tommy, is Jesus. I was like, wait a minute, he looks so familiar. Oh, yeah. The connection. I mean, it's funny. I maybe saw this movie, maybe 10 years ago, completely forgot about it. And I was like, wait, I don't think I've seen this. And I started watching it. I was like, oh, wait, yes, I did. And for some reason, I mix it up with, what was the other movie? Anyways, Joseph, yes. So I mix up with Joseph, and I think that's a common thing for people. But I
think so too.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's really, really well done. Like Tommy, like again, you see the way it's shot cinematically. It was shot in Greece,
Israel.
right? Oh, Israel. So yeah. Yeah, so it was shot in Israel.
It's beautifully done.
It's really done really well. you get the eccentric, over-eccentric acting, but that I think is just the time, because I feel like it's the time, but it's also because it's like a rock opera, like a musical, that you kind of have to be over-eccentric in nature and to try to convey the characters. But it's one of those, like, if you also want like kind of history lesson, or you want to kind of like, if that, having to pick up the Bible and read the Bible, if you want like a little fun history lesson, like a quick fun history lesson for that, go and watch it, because not all of it, like as Vicky would say, is accurate, but it's fun. It's fun.
It's historical, artistic license.
Yeah, exactly. But it's fun. Like, I felt like it's such a fun movie, and love the music. Yeah.
It gets the point across. If you're, I don't know too many Christians that were, upset with it, tell you the truth.
Well, it seems like Christians are more upset by the simple fact that they show the crucifixion, but they didn't show the resurrection. That's the problem.
Well, actually, not quite 100% true, because, the very end of the film, when it's starting to go through the credits, if you notice, there's somebody walking, and the sheep are following him.
That was actually a mistake. But it actually works very well.
You just ruined that for anyone who was believing it was his resurrection.
He always pops my bubble.
No, but what I was saying is like, because I thought that, because I think that's a beautiful shot, and I love that, because it's kind of like, because it's like the shepherd and his sheep, and they're walking across the sunset.
That's what I thought it was. I thought it was.
And I really thought it was as well, but I was listening to the commentary, and they go, this shot we're best known for, but it was actually a mistake. It goes, at the time that shepherd walked across, they were really angry with him, but afterwards we're actually really happy for it that he did it.
No kidding, I didn't know that.
Especially, and spoiler alert, especially that it kind of ends where they're all are leaving him behind. It's like they're all like, oh yeah, and they're going off. So that kind of is a surreal moment.
Spoiler alert, Jesus does die in this movie.
But inadvertently they shoot that scene, and it's like, wait, that kind of works. Let's just keep it in,
I didn't know that. That's an interesting little fact. I didn't know that.
Another interesting fact about the film Jesus Christ Superstar is all the backing dancers would actually finish their job and actually go back to New York, because everyone was a stage actor, and they would actually start workshopping a little show called A Chorus Line, where they actually use their life stories in format. And then most of these people would actually go on to actually star in the original Broadway cast of A Chorus Line. And one of the apostles is played by Patti LuPone's brother, Robert DuPone. And the original Connie Wong, all never right, always wrong, from A Chorus Line.
God, you just totally confused me on that. What the hell are you talking about?
But you'll see her if you look. If you ever watch the film over again, if you look around the chorus and you're familiar with what the original cast of Chorus Line is, you will see them in this movie.
Right. Really, I'm gonna have to look it up now because it's gonna bug me.
It's always weird when you, again, like at the Tommy moment, like it's always weird when you go and you look at, you're going, oh wait, that's, and then you kind of. You're like, wait, you're in this and you're in this. I'm like, oh yeah, duh. They're, they do different roles. It's weird.
I mean, what I quite like about the movie, I like the fact that they arrive on a bus and they're all quite like, oh, let's put on a show. And at the end, and it's like, you can tell that they're actually touched by it all. And I quite like that that you had the two bookends for this movie. I mean, I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, well, I remember the first time I saw it, it was on TV or something. I was watching my mom, and I go, "Oh my God, it's the busload of hippies."
Well,
I gotta watch this.
It's actually really smart that, around that time, because it was like, the congregation of trying to find peace, and and it's sort of interesting that it kind of mirrors that
well,
time.
Coming out of the late 60s too, with all the chaos and flower power opposition, and that was still kind of like a child born out of that era.
I mean, the show itself, I think, really works. I think it's interesting to bring everything to the point of view of Judas. Yeah. And I think I was having a conversation with Isaac today. I go, the funny thing about Judas is that he gets a lot of bad press. Yeah. But you need Judas. Without Judas, you wouldn't have Christianity. He had to play his role. So he's basically the God's pawn, I suppose. Yeah. And it was quite interesting to see, hear his point of view. And what I like about Jesus Christ Superstar is like, I grew up in a Christian household. I'm a Christian myself, and I'm quite familiar with. I read the Bible inside and out. What I liked about Jesus Christ Superstar is that you do get dialogue and you do get human emotions with these characters that you don't normally get, whether you're watching Mel Gibson's version of it or Martin Scorsese's version of it, or the Robert Powell, who actually did Tommy as well, of Jesus of Nazareth miniseries. There wasn't you never get the emotion that you get in Jesus Christ Superstar. You don't get the understanding of what's going on. And I have to sit there and my hat's off to Tim Rice, because he is a fantastic lyricist. Even if you listen to like stuff like in Evita, or even like lines in The Lion King, and the music in The Lion King and the other shows that he's done.
Oh, they're all brilliant.
So quick, and his little quips and stuff like this. Even in like the song Superstar, is like, did Muhammad move a mountain, or was that just PR? And those lines keep coming at you, and it's fantastic. But in the same way, he still integrates, specific lines from the Bible into the lyrical contents as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I find that amazing, sort of thing. And, I also think that, when it comes to Christianity, and everyone says that, he's the son of God and da-da-da-da. And in the Bible, it says that, and I found it quite interesting that they actually bring this out in the concept album in the movie. It's like, no, that's what you say I am.
Yeah. But it's interesting thing there with Pontius Pilate. Because it's true, though.
But if you talk to all Christians sit there and say he's the son of God, but never once in any of the contexts does he say that he is.
No, everybody else
is. You say I am. Precisely, which is it's quite interesting that they actually were able to bring stuff like this out in the show, sort of thing, and it kind of makes you stop and ponder.
And it kind of makes you know how they're always talking about, well, I'm kind of a firm believer in this. This is where I'll probably get excommunicated, because I firmly believe that there's evidence that Jesus and Mary weren't just, they kind of maybe had a family, were married. They don't want those books of the Bible to be put out there just yet, but they are in the Apocrypha. But they kind of
that's where the Black Madonna religion comes from.
It kind of alludes that there's more going on with Mary Magdalene and him and Jesus Christ Superstar, instead of the usual where they make her look like a prostitute, because she wasn't a prostitute. It's so annoying. She was not a prostitute.
Yeah.
Well, I think when it comes down to things actually being written and stuff like this, I mean, the problem basically with the New Testament is that it's kind of written by the bystanders. It's not written by the people who actually were involved inside the story itself. It's not Jesus's autobiography. It's not Mary Magdalene's autobiography. And basically it's all told by people what their version of the stories are. I mean, that's what the Bible is.
Well, there was four.
It's like the phone game, basically.
Well, each gospel was written at a different time, one being apocalyptic, and there was 3 other versions. And that's why, they weren't all, it was 70 years after the fact too, when some of them were written.
Well, and that's what makes Christianity quite an interesting thing, because what they'll do is they'll quote and misquote things that Jesus said this and Jesus said that. And most of the stuff that they said is that Jesus didn't say it. I mean, if we want to get a bit controversial, let's take homosexuality. Jesus doesn't say anything about it whatsoever. John does.
Yeah.
But it's not like Jesus said this. It's John says it, because that's actually what his beliefs are. And then you have Old Testament stuff, of course, which Old Testament hates everybody. So that's
everything's an abomination. An abomination here and an abomination there.
Yeah, but as far as what Jesus actually says and does, it's kind of left up in the air, and that's what I quite like about Jesus Christ Superstar, is that you get Jesus. I mean, basically, each song is a postcard in the life of Jesus, basically, and it's like little events, and and what it does lack, which I think works strongly for this, is when you watch an opera, normally what you have is these things called recitatives. And what they do is they bridge the songs together, sort of thing. And you don't have that in Jesus Christ Superstar. You got song and song and song. And to the point where Superstar fades, and it pretty much fades into the next scene in this, on the album and into the crucifixion here. But that's what I quite like about this, because it's like you do watch it and you get all the appointed beats of the last week of Christ. And it's quite interesting to hear, the points of views coming across and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it comes across a whole lot better than, being beaten over the head with a ruler in 8th grade. I could definitely back then could identify with Jesus Christ Superstar as opposed to sitting in the classroom.
Well, I prefer this over the torture porn of Mel Gibson's Last Temptation of Christ, or whatever that was called.
Oh my God. I know. I'm sorry, but God almighty, Jesus, that was terrible. Oh, you liked it, but it was awful. Poor Barbara Hershey. They just totally cast her in a real shit role for that one.
Oh, that was the Martin Scorsese one, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, that was The Last Temptation of Christ.
That was. What was the one that Mel Gibson did that was like
The Passion of Christ.
Oh, The Passion of Christ.
Yeah. That was a Jesus snuff film. That's all that was.
Oh, yeah.
I have never seen anybody take a fucking beating like that 2 hours of my entire life. And talk about being anti-Semitic. I think Mel's kind of underlying that a little bit in there. I think people were coming out of the theater being mad at the Jewish nation. I watched it when I went. I mean, come on, Mel, try to tone it down a little bit.
And I think what makes Jesus Christ Superstar is that it raises questions, but it doesn't look to answer anything, which I quite like. It's like, this is the facts, and then and it ends on the crucifixion, and then you kind of walk away from it. And whether you believe that, he's, resurrected or not, it's up to you. But,
right.
And I quite like that.
I mean, also, it doesn't placate on the premonition of it all, because I think you get nuances of, like, Jesus saying he knew, like, about Judas and knew about Peter, and, like, but it doesn't placate on that. Like, so as you said, it doesn't really focus on that as so much more the relationship that he has with Judas. And I think it's something that you can even relate to modern world and how people treat each other and how they interact with each other. And it's like, you've done something wrong to someone and you try to make up for that. And like his story arc, like you said, it's sad because he kind of sells him out, and then it's like, wait, I did something wrong. And I feel like I have to repute for that. And he ends up taking his own life. And that's something that just is common today when someone feels like they've done something wrong or done wrong by someone, and it eats them up alive, So it's very interesting.
Jesus is quite tragic here, though, in the Bible and in anything you watch. I mean, he was the fall guy. He's the one that had to give him up. I mean, talk about a tragic historical character. No matter what version of anything you're watching, religious or musical or whatever, he's the catalyst through the whole thing.
And he's mad at God because, again, that part of what's sort of conveyed in that is that, you picked me for this role, and I'm pissed that you picked me for this role. I didn't want this, but he had to play that role in order to kind of fulfill the prophecy, if you will, of what was going to happen.
Basically, someone had to do it.
Yep.
Well, and you got to remember that Christianity is born from the Jewish religion, and so if Jesus is walking around, and if you look at rabbis, they don't have carnal lust. They don't, like priests apparently, but make the fingers. But the thing is that they don't marry and all this other stuff. So you got to remember, Christianity would probably take in a lot of those Jewish beliefs, and some of the argument that Judas is saying throughout this movie is, quantify a saying. It's just like, you need to be careful here because you're supposed to promote this way of life and stuff like this and loving each other and stuff like this. But at the same time, you do have social conflicts that social constructs that you have to live in between.
Yes.
And, and if you are running around a woman, whether they're sexually active or not, this problem is that, if you're going to be a leader of a church or a leader of a religion, which what Jesus was propped up for and why he's got followers, then maybe you shouldn't be entwined with a woman unless there's marriage or some kind of commitment involved as well. And, and the other thing is, like, you're talking about, the poor and everything like this, but at the same time, it's like, you're spending money on yourself. Maybe you need to spend money on what your beliefs are. And, so Judas, even though he's a bit harsh with the way he says it, there is a lot of truth behind why he feels afraid. And he is afraid because he knows that basically in the climate that they're living in is that, they're walking on a really thin line here.
Yeah.
And of course it would lead to his destruction. Yeah. But then we also have this whole thing that unfortunately that everyone in the story of Jesus is basically the whole outline's already made up for them. their whole course of their life is there. And there's no veering off the path. There's no decision going left or right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, if Jesus is to die for our sins, he has to die. There has to be the fall guy. There has to be the person that turns them in, And, but even which I find very impressive is Pontius Pilate, which you do get a little bit in the Bible, but there's not a lot about Pontius Pilate, which is interesting. The only thing different about this is that Pontius Pilate's wife has the dream and not Pontius Pilate.
Yeah.
And they changed it here. And I imagine that's probably like, that way we don't have to cast another female that comes in and sings a 2-minute song sort of thing. I'm pretty sure that's why Pontius Pilate has the dream in the thing. But, when you watch this and watch Pontius Pilate come in and through history, whether it's in Bible school or whatever like this, you have this thing of Pontius Pilate being really evil. But what I like about this is that he gives Christ so many chances to get out of this.
Yes, I know.
Talk to me, I can get you out of this. All you have to do is say this. All you got to do this, he's like goading him. Yeah. And even King Herod to points like he doesn't want none of, and even the Jewish priests are, they're cowed by the situation. They don't want to take responsibility. So they keep passing him from pillar to post, Jesus.
Yeah.
And each one of them is like, all you need to do is say this and you can end this all. You can go back to your life. You can do, it's almost like you still have your followers. You can still have your church. All you need to do is say this. And he doesn't say it. He doesn't save himself because he knows that he's on this course.
Yeah. It's also, you can look at that even in the modern day sense that, you go from the religious crusade where kings said, this is my religion. If you don't follow it, then, and all you have to do is forsake your God and, repent to mine, and it should be something as simple as, okay, yeah, no problem. I don't want to die, but it's holding true to your beliefs, and holding true to there is a reason why I'm doing this. And again, I like that you didn't have all the visions of what he was like, Jesus was seeing and what was making him profoundly move forward in that direction. It was just like, it will all be okay. I'm doing what I think I need to do. And you might not understand your role in this, but when things happen, it all needs to play out that way.
Well, quite possibly the most probably touching piece is where they're doing the Garden of Gethsemane. I only want to say that whole, it's like the agony in the garden, I believe they call it. Because he just like, oh God, I don't want to fucking do this. This is gonna suck. He knew it was gonna suck. It's like, take this away from me. He doesn't want to taste its poison. Who wants to be crucified? Talk about the Romans came up with new and ingenious ways to torture somebody.
Well, make an example of you, because it was all about making an example and putting, because they
if they didn't die quick enough,
example.
They would break your legs if you didn't die quick enough. Making it probably more horrific. So,
well, what I think what Norman Jewison did fantastically well is during that sequence of Gethsemane, I only want to say, is that when you get to the instrumental part, dun 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 dun, dun that part of it, and then it shows the actual classic the crucifixion, and I thought that was ingenious because the thing is like, I find that. You kind of look at the crucifixion, you don't really, you don't think of it. And you kind of, I know that you look at, you go to church and you have Jesus on the cross and stuff like this. But, normally it's quite a good looking Jesus. It's on these crosses and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. But when you saw these works of art and you saw the agonizing and the horribleness of, the death itself, it kind of really brings it home of exactly where this is going. And I thought that was quite ingenious of him to insert those in there.
Yeah.
And I quite liked another thing is that during the superstar moments when Carl Anderson returns from the dead and gives his critique about Jesus before the crucifixion, and backing singers are all going and everything like this, and then it's interspersed with Jesus carrying his cross, because he had to carry his own cross, and Mary crying and carrying on, and she being held up. And I thought that the way that when it comes to this whole conclusion, the way everything is filmed is so fantastically well done. It really got you you got this groovy number going on. There's and to be honest, I mean, Superstar is probably one of the most classic numbers of all time. I remember being in school even before I knew what Jesus Christ Superstar was, and saying, "Jesus Christ Superstar, where's frilly knickers and a Playtex bra?"
God.
You're such a fucking mess. Oh my God.
Sacrilegious person.
But that's what we used to sing in school, you know what I mean? So we all knew that, we knew that, oh, Jesus Christ. We all knew that part of it. We didn't know the rest of it. And of course, like kids do, you come up with their own, Jingle Bells, Batman Smells, Robin Lays an Egg,
Yeah.
It's also such an interesting song for that moment because, like you said, it's almost like a disco mix while someone's being crucified, versus this like very somber, like it's, yeah.
Also, he also was really quite brilliant he interjected like the military garb that was modern, and they had tanks. They used the Israeli tank force to do that one scene where Judas is being chased through the desert by the tanks.
Yeah.
Goes into his thing where he's at the Sanhedrin because he'd been beaten so badly. And the Sanhedrin, I still never understood what those fucking things were on their head. The big black pumpkin things,
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. I mean, there are some questionable costume
decisions in that.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that there was what I noticed in the background, which is actually I did some research, and we did if you're a listener to this, we did one of our shows based on Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and the black girl named Pet is actually in the chorus of this movie.
Who is?
The girl who played Pet in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. Yeah. So I saw her there. I was like, oh my God, is that her? And I had to I spent like an hour and a half to research last night finding out if it was her, and it was. I was so excited.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
But I think that I think the film is still it's not dated. And I noticed like with I listened to the concept album today. I was like listening to that while just getting out of bed sort of thing. I thought, okay, I'll listen to the concept album in full. I have been listening to bits and pieces because it's on my phone at the moment, and I've been listening to it on the way to work, bits and pieces of it, and listening to very different recordings of it and stuff like this. And I thought, okay, I'm going to listen to the concept album in its entirety. And I have to say, it's still quite fresh sounding. It's not very dated.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And the movie's not very, very dated either. I think the movie actually, I watched the Blu-ray last night, and I thought the movie, I was quite captivated by the movie. I didn't find time being bored at all during it.
No, and it helps knowing the musical score too. I'll drive everybody nuts because it's on. I'll just keep on singing. Better hope I don't find nearby because I'll drive you out of the house.
I listened to the album first and then rewatched the original, and then I had sent you both. I watched the live arena tour that was in the UK at the Live Arena.
Yeah, with Melanie Chisholm from the Spice Girls playing Mary Magdalene, right?
Yeah, and the one that played Judas, oh my God, like he just kept making me cry. His voice is just so powerful and so strong, and it's done very much in a modern take, but I loved it, and I just I'm glad that it's continuing sort of to evolve in the years that it's been on, because I was just looking at even when it was produced, it's like Broadway 71, West End 72, Australia 2 and 72, and then it keeps going, and then it's like bouncing back and forth between Australia, UK, US, Australia, UK, US. So it's kind of amazing that it's just continuing to evolve, and now it's in Chicago right now.
I watched it. I watched the Ted Neely came. They had the Syracuse Landmark Theater, which has got great acoustics. And I went and seen it with one of my best friends, the same girl, the same that we used to sing it together when we were little girls all the time. And it was fabulous. Ted Neely we had like second row seats. It was great. And even though I was 4 months pregnant with my daughter, I could not have any fun at the bar before going in. It was still it was a memorable experience. And it was fantastic. Like I said, I keep forgetting how fabulous plays are until I actually sit down and go to one. Yeah. Because they really, it's kind of been a TV kind of a wombat kind of sort of, it's like, wow, why aren't I doing this more,
It also just is shocking to know that someone does a performance sometimes twice a day, and they do that all over again, and they do it over again, and you're just like, wow, it's crazy.
Well, they love what they're doing, and you can tell, you can just tell when somebody loves their job as much as they do, because who gets to do that and get paid a lot for something they love doing,
Yeah,
I think it's great.
What I quite like about Jesus Christ Superstar, the stage productions, I think I saw the last time it was in the West End, and we had this guy named Steve Buscema. And you think Ted Neely and Ian Gillian were great. If you get a chance, look on YouTube. Really? Steve Buscema singing I Only Want to Say.
Who's his name? It's probably on YouTube somewhere, right?
Yeah, it is. And when he performs it live at the Olivier Awards, and every time when we saw him do it, he cries when he's singing "I Only Want to Say," and the tears are flowing down here. But he's got that rock voice as well, where he does
right.
That,
what was his last name?
Bossimo.
Bossimo.
Bosilimo. He's a Scottish guy, and the production I saw was kind of like they did it like in a street gang sort of thing, and so the whole opening of the show was basically all these people running out in the street in their street gear and stuff like this.
Oh, that's the one that's the one I watched. That's exactly the one I watched.
Yeah, it's done like that, and the whole thing is like this. And the guy, and I think we had Alice Cooper did the part of King Herod at that time.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I've seen that one on TV.
Yeah.
Okay, I know exactly which one.
Yeah, the video is available. Unfortunately, the video has got Glenn Carter as part of Jesus, but it doesn't have Steve Buscemi. But I remember seeing it live, and they made it really modern. And I remember like during the superstar moments, is like the screens come down, and the angels come out, and they're in their leather sort of thing, doing don't get me wrong sort of thing like this. And Jesus is in his leather sort of thing. And meanwhile, in the back, you seeing that Jesus all whipped and all the blood running, and he's carrying his cross, and of course then it leads to the crucifixion, and the way it was done was done in such a postmodern way that it still worked. And that's what I like about Jesus Christ Superstar. There's so many different productions that I've seen, and everyone is unique. I saw a Japanese version of it called in a kabuki style, and they're all like in their kabuki gear, and the whole thing is when the crowd happened, they're walking around with their bamboo sticks, and they would cross their bamboo sticks in front of each other and be behind a gate, and they would do the whole thing in Japanese. And
that's very cool.
And that's what and not many shows you can get away with having so many different interpretations of the same show without changing anything in the show, but just changing the staging. Yeah. And that's what I love about Jesus Christ Superstar. That's what keeps it fresh. That's what keeps it going. And every director that directs it puts his own stamp on it. And I did a production of it where I was a Roman soldier, and I actually broke my ankle because I fell off the stage when I was.
Oh my God.
Fell into the orchestra pit.
Did you ask Jesus to heal you?
You did not fall into the orchestra pit.
I did, actually.
Did you ask Jesus to heal you when you're?
I was doing the Watertown lyric theater.
Oh my God, you're kidding me!
And I basically, at that time, I had to say, our Roman soldier outfits were basically a jock strap with a little skirt. Sort of thing, and then this vest. And at that time, I was lifting weights. I had my six pack and everything like that, so I was quite comfortable, looking like this in front of people. But I had Jesus in one hand. I think Mike, the other Roman soldier, was the other side, and we're walking Jesus to the front. And they stopped, and I continued walking. I just fell into the pit.
No.
Oh man!
Ow.
I would have paid to have seen that.
And the worst thing about it is and I had to get myself up on the stage. It's like I had to jump up on the stage. This is at the state office building in Watertown. I had to jump up on the stage. Of course, my ass is showing underneath this little brown skirt thing that we had to wear.
Oh my God!
And I get up and I'm limping, and I go back to and I still kept on. The show keeps going because they don't stop.
Oh, you have to keep going. Like you can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So and I just kind of limped away, and I got to nail him to the cross. And
with your ass showing.
So basically, they got to see your resurrection, basically coming out of
Jeez.
But that's what I love. But so I had that memory of Jesus Christ Superstar. So it's always been my favorite. And I have to sit there and say, out of all the Andrew Lloyd Webber shows, I think Jesus Christ Superstar is probably his strongest.
Yeah,
and though though he probably, I know Phantom of the Opera is like a huge seller and stuff like this, but I don't think any of his shows are as tight as this show. There are parts of Phantom, and I have to say, the movie version of the Phantom of the Opera that they did was fantastic with Emily Ronson. And that was fantastic. And it's probably the only film that Joel Schumacher didn't fuck up. But but when you look at Phantom and you look at Cats, I hated Cats. I appreciate it for what it is. Starlight Express was a mess, and Evita I think is a fantastic show. But Jesus Christ Superstar is the only show I know that I'm never bored in. Where I find a lot of his shows, there are a lot of lulls in some Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Especially like Les Miserables, like that is it's so long, and there's moments that you find yourself crying, and then there's moments like, can we speed this up a little bit?
Yeah,
How long is it going to take him to march into town? Let's move it along, folks. Let's go.
Like that. But the one good thing about the film also is like you're saying that the resurrection, I think it was kind of represented, because you remember how he starts off with the plain robe and whatnot, and then at the end you see him in his white adornment, and you could tell he's probably risen at this point.
Yeah.
And then that's what you got, all the angels with their go-go outfits on and their feathers and everything.
Well, that was Judas, right? Wasn't that Judas? That
it was Judas. He was coming down on a crane hook or something. He was on a crane, wasn't he?
It was on a crane, but the light hit it, so it looked like a cross, which I thought was very clever. Yeah. And I have to sit there and say that what I love about that Superstar moment is like they're on their way sort of thing. And, and they do their Jesus Christ Superstar, and they do it like this. And then by the time they sing it for a third time, then they do the little boogie dance.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, and I love that. And another thing I like about it is when he does his second verse, and all of a sudden the horns come in, they go, dude, like really strong. And I think the orchestration of Jesus Christ Superstar is fantastic. The electric guitars and the horns come in, and
the horns are also, isn't that the calling of the angels, or like it's like the horns are representative of that? So,
and I said before, the lyrics. Every time I do listen to Jesus Christ Superstar, the lyrics do knock me away. I mean, they're probably some of the best lyrics in any show.
I totally agree with you on that. They're very strong, and they translate well to each decade. Because I know young kids that are saying, "Wow, this is cool." Still, you don't have to be religious to watch it or whatever. But I mean, it does kind of get the point across, like you said, it resonates a whole lot more than the other musicals and whatnot. And then the John 1941, that's always like, it kind of chokes you up at the end, where the accidental shepherd is going through. You're saying, but they're all getting on the bus and whatnot, and then Judas and Mary Magdalene are the ones that notice he's not getting back on the bus, so they left him behind.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't understand what that represented, because he got off the bus with them, but he just didn't get on. It's sort of like, okay, this was just a play or whatever. And then
I think he was a method actor, and I think they really crucified him.
No, they probably did.
He's all method. I'm not getting on that bus.
Andrew Lincoln's the only one that's got method acting,
I think another interesting thing is that in 2015, they started bringing back all the original cast who actually did this movie. And they're doing a documentary called Superstars, the making of and reunion of the film Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, that would be great.
It's currently in production. So that should be out soon. So that'd be quite interesting to see everyone.
Well,
it's sad. Like, all of them died young. Like, one had lymphoma. Yeah. Judas died. And then I forget who else. The other, who was it? Another one, he passed away. He had lymphoma. It's like 57. Sad.
Well, one of them went into porn.
Which one?
Paul. He was one of the biggest porn stars after this.
Really?
Oh, Apostle Peter. Oh, he's Apostle. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Peter the Apostle.
Peter. His name is Philip Tubus. If you look him up, he was actually one. He did films like The Devil and Miss Jones, Beyond the Green Door. I think he's in Debbie Does Dallas. He was he turned into a big porn star.
Debbie Does Dallas.
And he's actually the one that actually would take porn and turn it into. He's one of the leaders of bringing porn to the main cinemas, sort of thing as well. He would actually start directing and make them so they had like nice storylines to be filmed beautifully and stuff like this.
Sort of like those Johnny Holmes movie where they had the underlying theme of being cops with badges.
Yeah.
Bad cop. What was it called? Oh my God, the driver. I can't remember the name of the character.
Well, they did the piss take and Boogie Nights of that, didn't they?
Oh, Boogie Nights, yeah. Oh my God, Boogie Nights. I love that movie. I think it's funny. My favorite part of Boogie Nights, here we go for 1 second. But where they're sitting there playing that song, Sister Christian, and that guy's throwing those firecrackers, and he's all freaking coked out. That is like the best scene ever, man.
I have to say of all of Paul Anderson's films, that's probably Paul T. Anderson, we should say. Or is it? No, it's just Paul Anderson, isn't it? No.
Well, yeah, it is. I understand. I was just looking up. I'm curious. It's like, Pretty Peaches, bad wives. So,
Pretty Peaches.
I'd take
Gotta
about
be
that
better
page.
than I'm sure he was the one that was behind. He was probably behind the one called the Knob Gobblers too.
Tune in Tokyo.
You know what's quite in 2012, this movie was considered one of the best Jesus movies ever made. Just Great Superstar by the Huffington Post. And Pope Paul VI he openly loved the film, and he went out and said how fantastic Jesus Christ Superstar is. So that's probably why IHC that you went to was able to show it, because the Pope said it was fantastic.
No, it was actually, I was in 7th grade. I was in Sacred Heart, but they did let us watch it, and of course, the immaturity factor when you're in the thieves, Temple of Thieves, where you get that shot of that woman doing her twerking, and the camera's like, I mean, it's like, oh my God, it's sacrilege. It's like someone's showing their ass. This is Sacred Heart, like in the late 70s. Okay, come on now.
Well, this musical in the UK, when it first appeared, they would have these religious groups campaigning out in front of the Palace Theatre where Les Mis ended up opening later on. But and by that time, it was the longest running show. And during this whole year run, I think it ran for like 10 years here. And they would have like this religious group for those whole 10 years, the 365 performances a year out there picketing Jesus Christ Superstar, which made people buy even more tickets.
I was going to say, it makes people want to see it.
They don't get it.
But, I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, if it's all because they wanted to see him get resurrected, it's like, okay, they just didn't keep going with the story. What's the problem? Like, it's crazy.
It's like, yeah, it's like I said, it's a spoiler. Jesus dies. He dies in every movie. He just dies, But like I said, the resurrection was represented because you saw him in his brilliant white robes. He came, but that when they're singing Jesus Christ Superstar, and they go into the, with the angels and everything else. But I think it was represented.
Every time I listen to Jesus Christ Superstar or watch the movie or listen to various productions of it, you know who I always thought would make a fantastic Jesus, not acting it, but singing it? Axl Rose. Can you imagine singing everything I want to say?
Yeah, that would be quite a spin on it. Exactly.
I don't think I'd want to see him perform it, but I would like to hear him sing it.
Yeah.
On an album somewhere. Don't want to see him with his cornrows. But
I don't know. Axel looking kind of bad at his old age.
And maybe Bon Jovi can play Judas.
Oh my God. There's nothing wrong with that man. He was hot then, and he's still.
Yep.
Nothing changes about John Bon Jovi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but isn't it because he's part of that secret society, the Illuminati?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Scientology.
Yeah, that's Cruise. That's Tom Cruise. They've gone a bit quiet on that one recently. Scientology's taking a back.
You know why? Because what's her name is like literally season 3 of tearing them apart. What's oh God, what is her name? She's doing a whole expo series on like trying to go behind the curtain
of the Scientology thing.
Yeah, she was the one who was in something about Raymond, the wife that was in
right.
That.
What's the premise? Is it a series or is it like a documentary in parts?
Yeah, she used to be in Scientology, and basically when she wanted to get out, she realized how they're just a nut job, and she decided to make a series on A&E, where it's just like going and showing what happens. Oh yeah, and it's deep. She gets into trying to get interviews with people and trying to get other people to kind of break the mysticism behind Scientology. Well,
that's why Katie Holmes and Nicole Kidman couldn't stay married to him.
Yeah.
He was total twat weasel at that point. He was,
Well, when I was watching the documentary Family Guy, I showed that Katie Holmes tried to break away, but there was like gay men in cages that Tom Cruise was keeping.
No.
Stop it.
I don't know. You never know.
I was saying when I was watching the documentary Family Guy.
I might be. You never know. He still puts out a good movie, but he looks like kind of a asshole to me.
So it's Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath, and it's on its like third
season. Watch that.
Yeah.
I love exposés.
Well, I think any time that you have all religions are called, but then
basically,
Catholic.
But this they literally have they have a payment plan.
Well, the thing is I believe that when you have a cult that's actually entwined with your bank account, I think that there's
Exactly.
going to be problems when you want to break up. It's like a marriage. If you got like a joint checking account and you want to break away, there are problems.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think, you know, Scientology, I mean, I had friends who are Scientologists, and, you know, they explained to me a little bit what the religion is, and it's interesting. I mean, it's got a science fiction slant to it. I mean, it was put together by a science fiction writer, and they believe that they live on different planets for each different life that they come back for.
What's the other one? There's Christian Scientists.
Christian Scientists are the ones who don't believe in medicine. And then you have Jehovah's Witnesses who don't believe in blood transfusion and believe in being miserable all the time because they're not allowed to be happy until they die. And I mean, there's all these kind of different religions. Well, it's true. I'm not saying anything bad. I mean,
we got Kingdom Hall's just right down the road for me. They come to the door, and I swear I've got like a Holy Diver on my phone. I wait for them all the time. I put Ronnie James Dio on with Holy Diver that they turn around and go right back out the door.
But I mean, every religion has its peculiarities. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, whether you're drinking the blood of Christ or eating his body every Sunday.
Well, it's endo-cannibalism.
Yeah.
And, you know, but then, you know, you look at the Mormons. I mean, you know, they're apparently this guy, can't remember his name now, but, you know, he finds this Bible that's written gold. And then, you know, because God gave it to him, and then he starts his religion. And of course, he buried the book away so no one else could read it because only he could read it. And
it's hidden somewhere.
And they still haven't been able to find it, but, you know, but he got a religion out of it. People believed it, you know what I mean? They still do. I mean, whether it's true or false, I mean, that's what we're not discussing the legitimacy here, but, you know, people will follow odd ways.
Well, people also want to have something to believe in. So if you have nothing to believe in and you give them something to believe in, then...
Yeah, the Jehovah's Witnesses was founded by Charles Taze Russell in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the 1870s.
And I would take it that he probably wasn't the life of the party. So...
No, he probably wasn't.
Well, I mean, you know, if I have a friend who's Jehovah's Witness, and she let me, you know, I'm always interested in religions, I'm interested in the Bible. I love reading the Bible and stuff like this, and you know, I also think my problem with religion, people who follow religions, is that they are following a book that they have not read. And that's the only thing that bothers me about religion. And when you got someone giving you their beliefs of what it means without you reading it yourself and getting your own meanings, that's where I have a slight problem. Now, if you want to follow someone after you've read the source material, I don't have a problem. But with Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean, the true religion means that they're not even allowed. They're not. I mean, people, you know, toss and turn, and there's areas of gray that they wouldn't live by. But the original religion, they weren't even supposed to have soft furnishings. You're supposed to be sitting in hard chairs and sleeping on hard beds, and, you know, sleeping on the floor sort of things, and all this other stuff. That's how this religion started. And of course, you know, it gets varied through ages. Thank God.
That's the Book of Mormon. They got that. They wear weird underwear. I got sorry friends out there that I got that are Mormons, but they have special underwear they wear. They got a T-shirt and.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's because it's the fear of sex.
It's like shrouds. Yeah.
Yeah, they have the fear of sex. That's all religion's based on. So it's fear of sex. Their sexuality.
Well, there are people that actually have sex through a sheet. There's a hole, and then there's the sheet.
Yeah, that's only with Jewish. I think that's Jewish rabbis. They're not allowed to touch any. They're not allowed.
Either that, or it's Hasidic Jews, or something like that.
You know, but I think every religion has its peculiarities. I mean, they all.
Yeah.
But do you ever notice sex is always a big hang-up with everybody? Like, everybody's guilty of the sins of the flesh, you know? That's the biggest thing they're freaked out about, mostly.
Well, I think it's probably the easiest thing to go for. It's the thing that everyone has in common, and it's the easiest. I mean, everyone's here because of sex, and everyone's going to probably die because of sex.
Well, it's like Pastor Jeffers. He's the big dude down here in Dallas that has the Prestonwood Baptist Church. They have more money than God and more real estate than him as well. And there was something that came out. I'll have to find the article. They're talking about how they actually proved and traced down to one man and one woman are part of that race. And not to get into a religious debate, it's like, well, incest is bad. So how did people procreate to get to that place?
Yeah.
Well, look, after the flood. If the flood did happen, we're all children of incest.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
We're not children of Eden, we're children of incest.
You know, look at Keith. He likes this. He does. It's controversial. He's hoping he's pissing somebody out there off.
No, it's God on.
No, it's just logic.
If you're going to believe in this sort of thing, I mean, that's the logic behind it. If there was raining for 40 days and 40 nights, the whole world was surrounded by water, and all there is Noah and his immediate family and their wives, and they had to repopulate the world. So basically, cousin upon cousin had to get on.
Yeah, you had to.
Yeah.
If you're going to believe these stories, that's the truth behind it.
Oh, this guy down here was all excited. He got on Fox News and.
Well, if you also get into I
was right. It's just like, oh, shut up.
You also get into in the past too. People would marry their cousins because they wanted to keep the money in the family, keep the
fourth generation. Anything closer than that, I think you're asking for deformities and.
Well, I mean, it just keeps the bloodline strong. I mean, the royal families, not the current royal family, but the royal families in the past, they would have this thing called blue blood disease, which was caused from interbreeding. You do get it. Then you have other religions who, like if you look at the Sikh religion, which is not based on any Christianity religion, but what they do is they're not allowed to marry from the same village. So basically, if you have like three people in the family, let's say your parents. So basically, both parents came from a different village. So that means their three kids can't date in any of those two villages they came from.
Right.
And that means their kids can't date in any of the 5 villages that the immediate family comes to. They have to keep going out to different villages.
That's like.
That's arranged marriages to help keep all that straight.
That's the problem they have with Jesus. They didn't really address it in Jesus Christ Superstar, but there's a lot of people out there that believe that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married and they did have a family.
Well, they say one in 12 guys is gay. So which apostle was gay?
It could have, I was gonna say
could have been Thomas.
Yeah.
Doubting Thomas.
Yeah.
Well, we know it wasn't Peter because he was doing porn. So.
Yeah, Peter had his own gig going on.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, we go back to Jesus Christ Superstar. I think that, I think it's a very well done piece of theater, and it's a fantastic album and everything going for it. So, Vicky, do you have anything final you want to say about the film or the concept album?
Oh, I don't care how old you are, what music you like, or if you're religious or non-religious. It's beautifully done. The album and the movie, both soundtracks are just brilliant. The cinematography when they filmed it in Israel is just fantastic. It's a moving piece. I mean, all the songs are thought-provoking, and like I said, whether you believe in whatever you choose to believe, it's something that translates well into any generation, and I would strongly suggest it for music lovers and whatnot. It's just wonderful.
And what about yourself, John?
I agree. I mean, something that is that started in the in 1969 and it's still to this day going around the world and kind of conveying its story. There's something there, and there's something that is very it's something that's universal in some ways for religion's purpose. If you're not a religious person, there's something that there's messages in the story, and the music is amazing. It's something that I was thankfully exposed to for my choir director, as I said before, and it's something that I think will transcend time, because I think I could see this going on for another 10, 15, 20, 30 years, because the story is just sort of a legacy story that's being told.
Right.
And for me, I think it's one of the best documentaries I've ever watched.
The Passion of the Superstar.
No, but in all seriousness, I think that it doesn't matter what your religious belief is. It's basically a good human interest story, and I think that everything is portrayed. You get a little bit of politics, you get a little bit of human connection, and you get to look at a story that most people, well, both Christians, I'm not quite sure about other religions, how attuned they are to the story of Christ. But, I think it gives it a nice little twist about looking at things from different sides. And that's what I love about the show. And it's something that is timeless. And I think that, with more productions, as I was reading, there's not a day ever in the world that there's not a production of Jesus Christ Superstar that's playing somewhere in the world. And that's been going on since 1969. So as we're speaking, there's a live production of it going somewhere. So
no, it's in Chicago. It's in Chicago.
In Chicago. There we go.
I'd go see it again for sure if it came here for play, because it's great. And usually the people that do it now, even the new people that have taken up the gauntlet, they're just as brilliant as the people in the past that have come and gone.
It was a number one running show in Israel as well. So it tells you that is a timeless piece of theater. So
yeah.
So I highly recommend Jesus Christ Superstar.
Me too.
It's been one of those holy kind of days, and as you all prepare to head to church to repent for all of your sins, you have to ask yourself, what would Jesus do? Well, he would say, head on over to our website at llpodcast.com to find all of our past episodes, check out our social and podcast platforms, as well as become a patron, and read our reviews of books to screens and everything in between. Don't forget to sign up to our monthly newsletter as well, where you can win an amazing limited season 1 t-shirt. And if you just haven't got enough of the big guy in the sky, check out our next episode where we will be continuing the theme of the month, Merry Christmas, the controversy, with the film Life of Brian and Saved. Thank you for downloading, sharing, and liking the Literary License Podcast. Until next time, go with God. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where those treetops listen and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. But then I am dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and the children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write.
May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be